You know what? What could possibly go wrong in this scenario?
Hey everybody, it's me, Malou, and we're back for another episode of Oh Heck No, a Naked and Afraid podcast. I have my co-host,
Gabe.
and we are ready to rock it. And if you're new to the show, thank you for being here. And what we do is we talk about the latest and greatest apocalypse episode. And we're on episode number 7 already, Gabe. It sounds like it's just starting.
I know, and now, we're one episode away from it being over with, and that's tragic.
We only have one show left, and it was getting to the point where I was like, okay, we need something to happen. And thank God we have the Joe show, because if it wasn't for Joe, I don't know where this show would have went. So let's dive into this. Let's talk about celebrities and Joe. One time when I was talking to Joe, he mentioned the word celebrity. I'm like, we're not celebrities, we're not. But watching him suffer as bad as he's been suffering, we're going to deep dive, people. It made me kind of admire him. It made me realize how real this is. And then I realized, holy cow, I did this. And they don't show my suffering as much as it really was, but this is real. The suffering's real. And watching Joe reminded me how much it sucks out there. No, I did not get as bad as him, but yeah, this sucks. Let's dive into it. How did it start off for you with the Joe show? Because that's what I remember right away.
Okay, so, well, I think it's very interesting that we got a bit of, not like bad foreshadowing, but there was some foreshadowing where Teal's like, oh, I'm just here in the abandoned building that Joe told me about, and I found these washers. I've been looking around and I found these washers. I wonder if they're going to come up later, these washers. And so she's out doing that. And then, Waz and Joe are going to see if there's a beehive nearby so they can get honey. And Waz is like, I don't know. It sounds like Joe doesn't really want to leave, but I think Joe really needs to leave. Joe, are you going to leave? No, I don't think I'm going to leave. Oh my God, he's not going to leave. This place is going to make him go crazy. He's not going to be able to survive. And they get the sap and stuff, and
well, hang on, let's go back to the sap. Him
okay.
standing on the table and not wanting to give up. Joe, you are stubborn as all get out. I don't know if he realizes how stubborn he is and how his stubbornness can come off in a bad way, because you did not look smart. And it's not that you're not smart. It's you're stubborn. And he's up there. He could pass out, right, Gabe? Passing out is a real thing out there. I felt like I was going to pass out maybe 3 times. What the heck is going on? And it's such a difficult situation because you can see on Waz's face, can you not? And he's like, oh, we need to get to that. Waz thinks he's not making smart decisions, right?
But
nobody
really...
speaks up.
Yeah, I feel like Teal and Waz are very much like, Joe's not making the right decisions and he's in a calorical deficit. But then when they're talking to, at least based on the edit, but when they're talking to him, they're like, are you sure you want to stay here? There's not really that many animals, but behind the scenes, they're like, he's in a calorical deficit. He might not be thinking straight. He may hurt himself if he's by himself, but I don't know. It's interesting the way the edit is making it look like they're talking to his face versus the talking heads. I'm sure they expressed some of this, but the edit doesn't want you to know that.
Right. Because I think that if it was me out there, me and Joe, I love Joe, would have gotten into it because I would have been, remember when Wes's son was out there and Trisha's daughter was like, what's wrong with you? You're not leaving. That's the way I would have been with Joe. Joe, you're not thinking straight. I need you to sit down and listen to me because I love you. I understand, but you're leaving with us. I mean, that's the way I would have talked to him because I do care about him. Wait, I'm not there, but I do care.
If you were there, you would be like, I care about you, Joe. You need to go. It's very interesting. And then, yeah, he's like, oh, I was about to pass out, but it's no big deal. And it's like, you're standing on a table. Does he think like it's gonna be like the movies where he's like, oh no, and Waz is like, oh, I gotcha, and he catches them, and it's like bromance. But I don't think that's how that works.
Okay, so I'm not gonna call Joe not smart, but your stubbornness is taking over your decision-making skills. But you know what? There's a very good explanation for that. Bro is suffering. Joe is suffering so bad. He's out of it. He's not getting it. And it makes me feel bad for him. Have you noticed on any of the fan groups, not just yours, but have you noticed anybody kind of coming to his rescue now? Or no, they're like, this is what he gets, right?
Few people who are like, I like Joe, I think he's cool, but unfortunately, have people keep talking about his eye and him closing one eye and poking at that, and then there have been some other things that happen a little later in the episode that I don't want to skip ahead to that people criticize him for. But there are a few people who are like, he's fine, it's fine. I think his quirks
Well,
are
let's talk about the
cool.
tea, because the next thing is the tea. The first thing I noticed was I could not understand when they first showed him pouring, and he has like that red towel wrapped around it. And thank God for these, pieces of cloth. But even with that red towel, I was like, how is he holding that when it's so hot? I didn't think it was enough. I was so confused by that. He's going to burn himself is all I kept thinking. What did you think about the pouring of the tea, which was a failure?
Well, I was mainly looking at the color of the tea, and I'm just like, oh, look at the delicious black goo spilling out of the cup. And I'm just like, maybe it was a good thing he wasn't really paying attention. He's like, la 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 la, la, oops. And it was just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm sure once you're starving out there, you're like, this probably isn't poisonous. Let me just give it a sip. But I'm also just like, maybe
Yeah.
if your cup is leaking black ooze, then maybe like don't deal with that. This isn't like
Well,
a, I don't know.
you're like, thank God he dropped the tea. It did not look good, but I think you do what you have to do when you're out there. But it just shows you what a brain fog he's in. And you could tell he was beating himself up about it. And I think now at this point, in the beginning, Joe didn't care what the cameras and the people at home thought. But now that he had this big fumble, I think he's scared of looking like a failure. And hence him being so headstrong about staying. Because I think he would think, and this is just me thinking out loud, I'm going to stay here by myself. I'm going to prove how strong I am. And it'll be great to be seen that way. This is the way I want to be seen. This is the way my ego wants. Do you agree, disagree? Because why was he being so headstrong about not leaving? I think it's because he wanted to look strong.
I think so too. I think maybe seeing how well Teal and Waz had been doing, Teal managed to get the Diker, which was not a juvenile, just to remind everybody. He saw their success, and maybe my conspiracy theory mind is going, he's like, maybe I don't want to be carried by them. I want to like contribute to the team. I want to pull my weight. I want to be the strong one
I
third,
agree.
and in this moment I'm not. So maybe if I stay behind, I can either have some success or show that I'm tough by being here by myself and then move on
Yeah,
later. That could be his thought process, but I don't want to
I
speak
think it
for
is.
him. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to ask him. So after the whole I dropped the T, kind of like that, I dropped the T thing.
Spilling the tea.
Yes, Joe, come on our show and spill some tea because there's a lot of tea out there. I know there is. So let's move on from the Joe show temporarily. We'll get to his big moment in a moment. Let's just touch on the other groups. Remember last week, we hardly talked about Zaddy and Stee. So let's talk about them and their suffering because they're suffering too.
Yeah, there's just a lot of like passive suffering where they're just like, we tried this, it didn't work. We tried this, it didn't work.
It didn't work. We tried this. It didn't work.
At least there were no lions or snakes that were near their shelter. So, at least they can be a little less anxiety going on other than the we need to survive and there's nothing to eat right now except Mopani.
Besides the whole black mama that was in their shelter. Don't forget about
Uh,
that. Because, I mean, they
hot
start
ass,
to worry
hot
about
ass.
snakes.
Yeah.
So at least you can hear a lion coming, I guess. But anyway, you're like you said, it's just failure after failure. I'm thinking, why aren't they leaving? We're at the beginning of it. They're kind of start talking about leaving. And we can sum up their whole interaction from the beginning to the end in a couple of minutes. Because I'm just being honest. That's the way the show in the end it was. So they're not having success. They're talking about leaving. They're like, well, let's do some deadfalls. 100% they were going to get something with the deadfalls. And I was already thinking in my head on the podcast, why haven't y'all been doing deadfalls from day one?
Maybe they wanted to focus on the fishing and the hunting, and we're just like, we want to leave soon. Deadfall. Or maybe they had, but they didn't, it wasn't mentioned kind of thing, but maybe they didn't focus on traps until near the end because they didn't see that much small game at the beginning.
Well, he saw a squirrel. Zaddy saw a squirrel. So I don't know what the answer to that is. We'll ask Wes. He will answer because what Daddy, Zaddy, Wes is great. So we're going to ask them why they wait so long for the deadfalls. I was surprised they didn't catch anything. Super surprised, weren't you?
I mean, just seeing that environment, I wasn't super surprised. They both worked very hard on their deadfalls, and they did their best and had them out for a few days. But it's just, I don't know. It's always a flip of a coin with those things.
Well, the reason why I thought they were going to get something in the deadfall is because we had that miraculous right before we leave kill that everybody talks about on Naked and Afraid. I'm not the first one to mention it, right? We talked about it on this podcast before. It seems like they always get something to eat at the very last moment when there was, almost no hope left. Miraculously, they do. It's just not with the deadfall. They catch a terrapin. I don't know why they call it terrapin. I like the word turtle a lot better, but they catch the turtle. They're super happy and they decide to leave. Is there anything else that I'm missing on this besides the second crocodile? Which I don't know why they thought there was only one in there in the first place. I'm pretty sure there was two there the whole time.
I mean, and also for anyone who doesn't know, because this whole thing bears repeating, it was illegal for them to eat the crocodiles. Everybody, that's why they didn't try to capture them. But yeah, I think there being two. I remember they named them both too, but I can't remember what they named them. It was like I can't remember, but they named the two crocodiles, and it's just like, I just felt so bad for them the whole time because they're like, we're building this dam to try to get, keep the crocs on one side, us on the other, trying to fish. They had some success, but yeah, unfortunately this
Well,
episode.
let's talk. Yes. Well, let's talk about my favorite part of Zaddy and his line was, "It's hot like wasabi." That stood out to me. I'm so glad they put that line in there. It was hot like wasabi. I'm going to steal that. I'm stealing it. I don't care. It's now one of my catchphrases. Did you like that saying? Did it ring out to you, or was it just me?
I mean, I remember him saying that, but my first thought was, but you eat wasabi. Yeah, if you put it on your skin, it's not going to like burn you or anything, or does it? And so I was just thinking about that. I don't know why. I had sushi the other day and I was just like, why is wasabi a thing? Like, it's just like, I need to clear my sinuses and it just burns and it's just uncomfortable. Comfortable.
Wasabi, I put it on all of my sushi, like globs of it. I usually have to ask for more. I love wasabi. It brings out the flavor, the spiciness. And while we're talking about food today, and I took a picture of it, and I'm going to post a picture of it here. Today, I had a Naked and Afraid moment. I'm eating something called neck bones. Have you ever had neck bones?
I have not, but I've heard of them.
Okay, so I'm eating neck bones. And it's just neck bones on top of rice with a little bit of juice. And I'm cleaning the bones. I'm not over exaggerating. I'm like sticking bones in my mouth, digging out pieces of cartilage. And the person I was eating with was like, "You're not on Naked and Afraid. You can order more." I'm like, oh my God. Because I was literally, and that's the way that you do eat out there. Think about Naked and Afraid. If I was ever out there and we caught, or not we, well, maybe me, if we caught some kind of a pig or a hog, I would definitely make neck bone soup while I was out there. And it would definitely be a feature because I love neck bones. And it was just funny with the whole Naked and Afraid reference today at lunch. But let's move on. We have Hot Like Wasabi. We have Zaddy. We have Stee. They're going to move on. One last thing. And then if you have anything about the duo, at one point, I got so worried about Wes because I guess he has mud on him because Stee is a lot cleaner. I don't know if you noticed. His skin is a lot cleaner. And Wes has like dirt on him or something. It almost looked like, and his chest looked like it was burnt almost. And I was like, what is that on his chest? And then he has some on his head too. I'm assuming it's dirt. I did not like it. It made me concerned.
That's not what I thought you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say that or the area like in the middle of his clavicle was like really sunking in and talking about how thin he's gotten during this challenge. And I thought that's what you were gonna talk about, but I didn't I noticed like his chest was a little bit dirty, but I thought that was dirt. I didn't think he was like super sunburned, but he had his little hat on to protect from the sun, and then he had a pelt covering his torso, so he was able to protect
Yeah.
himself from the sun from that area. But I didn't think it was like a sunburn or anything.
I don't know why he's so dirty and Steve's so clean. I really don't get it. But we'll ask Wes that as well. So let's write that down. Ask Wes why his body is so dirty. All right. So anything else that you want to talk about with Zaddy and Stee?
I thought it was interesting, like the little vignette before like the final scene of the episode. They like go into the house and they're like, "Look at all these candles. Is this like a shrine or something?" And I thought it was interesting because they used the same shot of Steve jumping into the house when he sees the bat as the same, or they used that same shot again a little bit later on. I'm just like, but they used that shot before. Was he going in to see the bat? Was he going into, or was there's a continuity? I don't understand. But yeah,
Another editing little flip, right? And
exactly.
as a super fans, we love it. I don't think the regular people notice it, but we love those kind of like those little mess ups or those little "we gotcha" moments. I like that. We got you, editors. I love the editors. They actually make the
I saw
show.
this coming. You reused
Yeah.
it.
All right, so let's move on. I think the next part that we need to talk about. Do you want to talk about the interesting stuff and then move on to Alexa and Steven and Frank, or do you want to talk about Stubborn Joe? Which one do you want to do?
Talk about. I think we're thinking of the same moment with Stubborn Joe and just the the moment before the commercial break with Joe. I kind of want to talk
Yes,
about
but
that a little bit.
I'll give you the floor. Go
Oh
get
gosh.
on to him.
Okay, so I think like I could be completely misreading this, but you know the Joe, Teal, and Waz are sitting in their shelter, and Joe's just like, "I want to go scorpion hunting. Does anyone want to come with me?" And Teal's like, "No," and Waz is like, "I'll go with you, buddy." Because, Waz is missing his alpha bros from Last One Standing, Matt, Steven, and Dan. And so he's like, oh, I guess I'll find a new alpha bro in Joe. But, he's getting a little shaky there. But so Joe goes to leave the shelter, and we don't see exactly what happens outside, but we kind of hear a thud, and we see kind of the GoPro camera that's looking at Teal and Wise kind of move. And Teal goes out, and she's just like, "Oh my gosh, you fell over! Did you hit your head? Wise medic!" And
Mhm.
then we cut to commercial. And I just wanted to point out that I think when she's yelling Wise, that was the same audio when she was calling for Waz after she found the kudu. So I'm just
Mhm.
like, so which moment did she use that? But I think they just wanted to be like, oh, the tension. So, so we come back, and Joe's on the
Okay, so
ground.
let's pause there. So you think that that was the same audio? Why was Teal standing up and Waz still laying down? Because Waz said he would go with them, but he never moved, and Teal was the one standing up. I just thought that I just noticed that.
Maybe he was like taking a little bit of a moment before getting up.
But we get to the medic part, and Joe, I think this proves what kind of state of mind he was in and what kind of person he is, because when you're coming out of a blackout, I think your true personality is kind of shown through. And he was stubborn, and I think it was very obvious that all he cared about was not looking weak. I'm fine, I'm fine. And he almost did like this, like, don't touch me moment. Did you notice that? Don't touch me moment when Teal was trying to help him into the wheelchair or touch him or something?
Well, I think he wanted to like move the wheelchair himself, but when he was trying to
No,
move
no,
it to
no.
get,
This was when he was sitting down in the wheelchair. Like she was trying to help him get into the wheelchair, and he kind of, I'm gonna show you. Give me a second, okay? I want to get your opinion. You ready? Can you hear it? Or okay, here we go. You ready? Now look, hang on, pause here. Okay, that had to be fake. Because if he's standing out there, there's a camera there. Then why wouldn't they show him falling?
that's what I was wondering too, because they just cut to this and then we just hear the rattling, but then we do see that he like scratched his head. So I'm very confused.
Okay, so this is a new feature for us. We've never done this before live. So I don't know if this is going to go in the podcast, if y'all can see what we're seeing, but you saw that, right? They showed a shot of him standing up. So that must have been false or something, but let's keep going. And you saw the 10 hit. So it looks like he, at some point, hit that. That's my favorite part. No, look, here it comes.
Sit down for a little bit. All right.
You see him kind of like jerk away from her right there? Am I reading
Yeah.
too much in it? You
I
saw
think
him like, she's trying to help him. And he's like,
Yeah, maybe he's like, I don't want your help. I'll just, I'll sit in the chair. I'm fine, but fine. I'll go and I'll sit in the chair and be wheeled back in. But I can, yeah, I think he just wanted to kind of help himself in that scenario. He didn't want to appear.
He did
like
not
he
want
was
help.
helpless. Yeah,
And he did not want appear like, like you said. Okay, so let's just look at that little part again. This part just really concerned me. He just passed out. This is a stubborn man who does not want to be helped, and he wants to do everything alone and not look weak. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying there's a lot to be learned from this. I think. Let's look at it again.
I just hit my eye.
Your head.
Okay.
Just stay sitting down for a little bit.
All right.
Sit.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Sit.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Stand up too quick, man. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Just helping.
No.
Da.
And I love it how like Waz is just like, this is okay. Waz right here. Waz is just like thinking. I can tell you what Waz is thinking right there. This stubborn boy, he's gonna hurt himself, and he's so stubborn. Like, what do you think Waz is thinking in this moment? Because he doesn't turn around. He keeps his head down thinking, and does not help them at this point. What do you think he's thinking?
I think he's like, I think Teal has got this, but I'm really worried about Joe here. Is probably what he's thinking.
I think he's thinking like, ugh, this stubborn man.
This man,
Jesus.
prideful
All
man.
right.
But
Okay, let me stop sharing.
okay.
So I think that was really interesting.
My first thought is going back to when we see him walking out of his shelter, it's kind of cloudy. Maybe they had the GoPro up because he was by himself. So they're like, oh, we'll just, have this here if he walks around camp. But since Teal and Waz were there, they had more camera people around. So maybe that was just like an insert shot to be like, oh, this is him, or this is like the layout of the shelter. So everyone knows like the layout as he's like falling over. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay, so you can see that they ran up. A camera runs up,
yeah.
when Teal is there. So they were there. What were they recording if they weren't recording him? Or looking at the shelter? Why wasn't this caught on camera? I don't understand. What were they doing? Where were they at? Am I wrong?
Maybe since they were all inside the shelter, they were a little bit off to the side, kind of putting the equipment down. And again, with the GoPro, they probably didn't get, that probably wasn't what was happening at that moment. So they didn't get footage of him falling over. So they're like rushing in to be like, what happened here? Kind of thing.
I don't know. Well, maybe it wasn't as bad. Maybe it didn't look that bad. Maybe he kind of like was sitting down and fell down slowly, and they don't show it because they want it to be more dramatic. What about that?
Maybe, but he did end up like hurting his head a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was funny when she was just like, you hit your head, and he's like, no, that I just scratched above my eyebrow. She's like, that's part of your head.
That's
that
part
was-
of your head.
That was unintentionally funny to me. But yeah, he was just like, I can do this myself. And Teal's like, no, sit in the chair. And he was like,
It was hilarious. Teal, you have personality. My gosh, it was hilarious. And she was very caring and very loving. It was a really great naked and afraid moment. I hate that I'm just really upset why they didn't show him falling. I don't know what the camera people were doing. I love the cameramen. They are part of the family. They are what makes this show great. I just can't. I'm just so upset they didn't show it. I don't know why.
I'm sure they were probably kicking themselves because in the Shaken Not Stirred episode where we see Jessica being like, I don't feel good, boom. But
Yeah.
there was a cameraman right behind her to catch that. But it was, they showed that in all the commercials, just Jessica just face planting. And I'm like, oh, bless her heart. Like, it's just, you're not feeling it, boom. And they're just showing it over and over. And it's just,
Well, let's talk about Tara's partner. What was his name again? Her first partner? Sean. When he fell, they showed it. Did the camera move a little bit?
I think they had a GoPro and he fell, and where the GoPro was attached moved. I think as he fell, it was like attached to something and it moved.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. Well, this is a great TV moment that I don't know why it didn't make it on the screen. But like I said, Joe was stubborn. He learns a huge lesson. A huge lesson. And even though it sounds like I'm negative about the whole jerking away thing, what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to make a point. He jerks away and wants to do it on his own and lower his hurtness because he doesn't want to get tapped. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what it is. He doesn't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm really hurting. I'm seeing stars and I'm in pain, because he had no pain. His vision was fine. Everything was freaking great, according to his mouth. But dude, you just passed out. It's because he doesn't want to get med-tapped. And I think that's strong. I mean, of course you don't want to get med-tapped.
Exactly. I just want to say I think Joe is a very tough individual because on his first challenge, Candace tapped day 5, spoiler alert. And then we don't see him getting any food, and he says he doesn't get any food for 21 whole days. And so, he has 16 days alone, and that's very tough. And he was able to make it to extraction all right. And he was like, I don't want to be by myself, but he was by himself. And then this challenge, he was alone pretty much for 17 days after tiffing with Kel at the beginning, and Amber got med-tab. So he's a very tough individual, but I think he didn't realize kind of how much this environment and lack of food and stuff was really affecting him. And then probably when he passed out, he realized, oh, that could have been very bad. And luckily, Teal and Waz are very comforting. Yeah. And I wonder,
I would have been dead if y'all weren't here. Maybe
and I think
but he's close to it.
And I have a conspiracy theory that maybe he was like, oh yeah, I was going to leave with you guys the whole time, but he wanted to like draw it out to get a little bit of that tension. And then when he passed out, that gave him the nice segue to be like, you know what? I am going to go with you guys because being with
are you accusing him of making a good storyline? Is that what you're saying? You're saying that he was holding out for a good storyline?
Allegedly.
I don't think
I'm not saying... Or I'm just not saying he faked the blackout. It just was good timing. Not good timing. It just was unfortunate timing, really. But I wonder if, like, a little part of him was like, oh, yeah, I'm totally going to go, but I'm just going to make it seem like I'm not to build tension a little bit. But this is a theory. This is all alleged. Joe's very tough.
You are allowed to have your theories and your points of view. Love that we have, because a lot of times we think alike. But this one, I disagree. I think his stubborn Joe was planning to stay behind to prove a point. And he had zero intentions on going. And I think his stubbornness continues on with the whole, let's pack the wheelchair. Let's talk about the wheelchair.
Yeah, this was the thing that people have been talking about a lot. The word hoarder was used, and I'm like, he has a wheelchair, or he has as much stuff as Frank does, plus a wheelchair, and they're calling him a hoarder. And I'm just thinking, sorry for making you choke on your
almost made spit out on my brand new computer. I would have killed you. That was so. Whoever said that he's a hoarder is pretty funny.
And I'm just thinking, I thought that was really smart and really quirky, and people are talking about it. He's like, there is a wheelchair. I'm going to take the wheelchair over 11 miles with me. Everyone is talking about it. Like, I think that was very smart on his part.
I think it was smart, but he took too much. Having the water on the bottom there and having stuff leaning here. It's not a Black Friday sale where you have to, put everything in there. I think that he should have put less on there. He took way too much. And here's another thing that you were talking about, Gabe. He's clearly getting on Teal's nerves. Let's just be honest. Joe, you're getting on Teal's last nerve. And she tries to express it in such a nice way. And I don't know if that's a good thing or not.
I mean, but we did see a moment from the start of the episode come back a little bit with the washer. Because there was the part...
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that. But let's talk about Teal's attitude. Do you think that Joe is getting on Teal's last nerve?
Maybe not the last nerve, but like, there are 10 nerves. She's probably on the 7th right now. So I think she was... But, she and Watt, it's just like with Russell in the beginning, they're like, it would be really nice if... Or it's like, oh, hey, Russell, how you doing? If he can get himself together... and do some work. But oh, Russell, it's okay. Just take a break. Can he move at all? But it wasn't like that.
Okay, we're going to ask Teal. I'm going to write this down.
Okay.
Ask Teal how many nerves she has left out of 10. So Russell probably got rid of, I would say, at least 7 of them. So she only has 3 nerves left. So we're going to ask her about her nerves. I personally think that Joe is driving her crazy. I think she loves Joe, but she's getting on her last nerves. She's trying to tell Watts, no, this is going to work. I'll make it work. He's slowing everybody down. It's overpacked. And then the wheel breaks. Now, let's go to your foreshadowing moment.
So, at the beginning of the episode, she's like, oh, I'm just going to do some exploring around this area. I found some washers. And I'm like, as soon as she said that, I'm just like, this is going to come back later because I can sometimes get context clues from movies. And so the wheel breaks and she's like, I happen to have these handy dandy washers for you. And he's like, oh, thanks. And he's able to get the wheel back on and they're able to keep moving. And so luckily she came in clutch in that moment. But I still think she's like, here's some washers. Why? Why is the wheelchair happening? Oh, it's so great. Why?
Exactly. Like, she didn't want the wheelchair to keep going, but she still helped him out. That means she was a very good partner, Teal. Very nice of you. He was struggling with the overloaded wheelchair. Almost lost my drink over the hoarder situation. It was great TV. Joe, you keep making great TV. If you feel like I'm getting on to you, I don't care because I love you and you're making great TV. And the whole trekking through the African desert with the wheelchair is crazy bananas. You can't make this stuff up. I really can't even think of anything else besides that. Oh, foreshadowing, Gabe.
More foreshadowing.
Did I or did I not say on this podcast that if I was in Africa, I would sleep in a cage because it would be so safe?
Yes, I was just listening to that episode and you said that and I was just like, you guessed that. I was
That was completely coincidental.
Yeah, oh god. And I wanted to say before moving on to like the cage stuff, I remember there were twice in the episode when Waz, Teal, and Joe are packing up their first camp and Joe's getting his wheelchair together. We can see Waz with his GoPro and we could see like Joe in the background fiddling with stuff. But then while they're on their hike, we get a talking head from Waz and you can see Joe and Teal right behind him just standing there waiting. So I wonder if production's just like, hey, Teal, we know you're a little bit annoyed about this wheelchair. Can you all stop here? There's cloud cover, so it's fine. And Waz, here's the GoPro. Just talk to camera for a little bit about what's going on. And Joe and Teal are just like,
that irritates the heck out of survivalists. They do that. They make you stand in the worst places. They care nothing about about where you're standing, the sun cover, anything. And it'll be really quick. We'll make it really quick. We just need to get this from you real quick. It is what it is. It's a TV show, people, and it sucks. And they're not there to make us feel better. The producers and the cameramen are there to catch what's going on. So, but very good eye, Gabe. Very good.
Yeah, and working on so many TVs and movies, I think I remember hearing a few times over my many years of doing it where the director was like, cut. That was amazing. That was perfect. Everyone did an amazing job. Let's do another one just for safety. And it's just like, Let's do it again. Why not move on to the next shot? It's fine. It's noon. We started at 7. We got a long day ahead of us. It's fine.
So let's move on to the cage Boma people now. Oh, before we move on, the only thing we're going to talk about is how Hoarder Joe, I can't believe you said that. That was so funny. When they were at the second camp, he took more stuff with him.
Yeah. And, Waz is like, well, why don't you just take one of the cars and put it on top? Joe's like, oh, I'll just put it in the trunk and we could drive out of here. So.
Yeah. It's just too much.
Yeah, I thought that was really funny. And at least, Joe's getting along with his partners. They don't seem to be too irritated by his shenanigans. It's like fun quirks as opposed to like he's dragging us down. It's just like, okay, we just gotta go a little bit slower. But at least we see them taking a rest in the shade. Because I remember last week, Stephen Lang Jr. was just like, they're still walking. It's fine. Oh, we need to take a break. Oh, okay, let's stand right here in the middle of the sunny spot. Okay, drink some water. Okay, let's go. And Frank's just like, all right, I just got overheat exhaustion 2 days ago. This is fine.
Well, let's go ahead and move on to Steven, Alexa, and Frank and their time on the show. which I have a lot of complaints about them. I'll let you give a little summary while I write down my complaints.
Well, what happened was, at least at the beginning of the episode, we see them going away from the hippo water source and they're trekking. And, Steven is 10 miles ahead of the other two. Frank is, has heat exhaustion, but he's still going. I'm just kidding. He's not that far ahead. But they finally make it to another water source and they're like, yay, water. Wait a second. Why is there a boat? Why is there a cage? And they're sitting around and talking. And Steven's like, I can't think of any scenario in the entire world. This is so confusing to me. Why is there a cage here?
Okay, let's stop there. That whole thing, I think, was for TV. I think there's a lot of very good reasons why there would be a cage there that I could come up with the top of my head. What about you?
Well, I take the narration at face value and that the area was used as a game reserve and had hunting outpost, and when they're reintroducing prey animals back into the area, they leave them in the cage for a little bit, make sure the predators go away, and then release them and stuff. But there's a movie I think called Prime, or this is slight tangent, but there's a movie called Prime Evil, I think, where it's about this giant crocodile in Africa that's named like Little Gustavo. When I first saw that cage, I was like, oh gosh, Little Gustavo is nearby. You gotta make sure you're away from the crocodile. It was just interesting to see like the juxtaposition of the boat and the cage, but I can see why they would have a cage out there,
Yeah, I think they were being a little dramatic about why is there a cage here? I mean, it's nothing crazy. So anyway, so if they get there, they get the thing. I would like to first point out Frank was a little stubborn about being in the cage when the cage makes perfect sense in a lot of reasons, especially since you don't have to build a whole boma. What do you think his reasons were for not wanting to sleep in the cage? He had a little attitude, did he not? I mean,
yeah,
a lot of attitude about it.
He's like, I don't want to sleep in a cage at night. Maybe he's like, I don't want to be in a but it's just like a boma. I don't know. Maybe because I wonder if he was worried about potentially getting like locked inside or something. Locked inside the cage.
The first thing I thought was he had been in jail before and didn't want to be in a cage. I mean, I think, is that wrong for me to say that? That's the first thing that my mind went to. And the only reason why my mind went there, and I'm not saying, let me clear the air. I'm not saying Frank has ever been in jail. I am saying that my brother, who was in jail a lot, when my mom was sick, she didn't want her hands bound at night because the nurses wanted her hands bound so she wouldn't pull out her tubes. And my brother was just like, I know what it's like to have your hands bound and handcuffs. I'm not doing that to my mother. And spoiler alert, my mom pulled out her central line. So and that's probably why my mind goes there. It has nothing to do with Frank. My mind goes to, have you been in jail? You don't want to do that. It's because of my brother. Those are my own personal issues. But that's where my mind, because I just didn't understand why he was maybe he's claustrophobic, but it's a cage.
Yeah, and my first thought is the Lord of the Rings, where two of the characters are talking. I think Eowyn is one of them, the lady with the long curly blonde hair that was the human woman. And she was talking to someone, and he's like, what are you afraid of, or something? Are you afraid of death? And she's like, no, I don't fear death. And he's like, what are you afraid of? And she's like, a cage, not being able to go places and being trapped in a spot. So maybe, yeah, it was the claustrophobia and fear of being trapped. And he was just like, I don't want that. Even though with like a boma, you're still kind of trapped in that circle, but at least maybe the open air concept.
Yeah, you reminded me of something else. All right, so my next complaint is Alexa saying on and on about how they learn from their mistakes, they have good rain cover, and they're not going to make that same mistake again. And then they show them just putting like the light little leaves on top for shade. That's not rain coverage, girl. And I know she probably said that before they actually completed it, but I did not like the little leaves on there again. What about you? Did you notice that?
Yeah, or I remember her talking about like the shade and stuff, and I'm looking at the cover and I'm just like, you're probably going to need a lot more leaves than that. And two, when that stuff starts drying up, you're going to have to like replenish it anyway. So it's just like,
Yeah, but she said rain coverage, and she's not going to make that mistake again. And then who is it that comes in later? And she's like, yeah, if it rains here, that ain't going to work. Teal, I believe it was Teal, right?
Yeah, I think you're correct in that.
I mean, that was just crazy. I'm gonna go on with one more complaint, and then I'm gonna let you talk about Frank's win. I noticed in other African challenges, and they have said this before, and I know you will remember this. They used to say, if you left your boma at night, you will be forced to leave. You have to pee in your boma. If you have to do other bathroom matters, you have to do it in your boma. If you have to throw up, you have to throw up in your boma. You must have a boma of fire, and you cannot leave until we get there. I guess those rules no longer apply.
That's what I was thinking too. Maybe that's why Steven stayed inside, because he's like, if the challenge is
Old
done.
school.
Yeah, all right, and he's probably like, I'm right in the line of the GoPro. I never left. But when Frank was just like, I'm gonna go out of the cage at night, and Alexa's like, let me take the GoPro with me as the water's splashing around, and I'm just like,
I was losing my mess. I mean, number one, it is dangerous, and I do know that sometimes they make it seem darker when it's really not as dark. They can do that with lighting and the night vision thing. So I was thinking, well, maybe it really wasn't as dark as they made it seem, but it was dangerous if it was truly nighttime. I'm sure people are talking about, well, why did Steve just lay there? Well, you're not supposed to leave the cage, I don't think. I really don't think you're supposed to.
I wonder if maybe they saw the footage and they're like, you know what, you gotta win. You didn't get hurt. It's fine, but do not, under any circumstances after this night, leave the cage, because literally later that night, at least according to the edit, they're like, we hear hyenas, and like, what are you supposed to do if like the cage door is wide open and there are hyenas roaming around and are like, ooh, a free fish, but the fire's over there. These two people have a fish. Also, I think hyenas are really cute. I wanted to throw that in there. I want to pet one, but I don't want it to bite me. They're like, oh, the hyenas are gonna smell this from miles around, and it's just like, well, now they're gonna keep coming back. So scared for Frank and Alexa's challenge, and I could see production like making it a whole big thing. Frank, Alexa, and Steven are kind of doing their thing in their shelter, and then like we see like a producer being followed, shaky cam, and he comes up and he's like, we need to talk to Alexa and Frank, and they're just like, what? And Steven's just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. Hair flip. And then the producer is just like, you guys left your cage. That's against the rules. We have to set a precedent. I'm sorry, but your challenge is over. But I think because Frank...
I can see that.
Yeah, but I think because they could see how popular Frank would be and Alexa hasn't done anything egregious in the past, they were like, okay, we're making an exception here.
Warning. You think they gave him a warning?
Maybe they got a warning. I could see them getting a warning, but I'm just like, they could have turned that into a whole TV moment. They could have made, like, have that be like the central point of the season, but maybe because...
We need to ask.
Yeah.
They've been leaving their bomas some a little bit at night. I think that some of the bomas weren't significant enough. And I mean, it's just something that we'll have to look into, but I think this was especially dangerous. But let's move on. You want to talk about him shooting the fish? I don't think it was that dark. I don't know.
I thought it seemed a little dark. Just looking at it, you can tell when they put like a dark filter. We see there's a point where it looks like Steven is shoveling water at night in his shelter, but I think they put a filter over it, and that was during when it was cloudy and still daytime. But when looking at Frank getting the fish and Alexa filming behind him, it looked like there was very little light, and I think it was dark, maybe not like pitch blackout, like it was dusk, like someone's about to fully go down kind of thing.
I think that's the most likely case. But what about the fish? Like him getting the fish?
I thought that was amazing. I think it was his first shot too. He just, was like, boom. And I think he had to go out a little bit to get it, but he managed to grab the arrow, and he had the fish on it, and he gets his second fish of the challenge, at least that we've seen in the edit. People like to throw out the term legend a lot. I don't know. I don't think Frank, unfortunately, is not an official legend, me being a couch survivalist, but I think he's working his way up. He's definitely leaving an impression to have producers be like, maybe we should bring him back so he can become a legend, like legend in the making kind of thing. But
Hang on. What are the rules for legends? I mean, tell me what you think a rule for a legend is.
Okay. I remember I've spoken about this before, but I actually missed one. Based on everything that I've seen and heard, I believe there are 5 ways unofficially one can become a legend. And I know a few of them are according to EJ himself. So one is completing a 60-day challenge. One is completing one is completing 5 challenges. One is completing 2 Excel challenges, and one is winning last one standing. And then there's like an unofficial 5th like gray area one, because Gary, who everyone considers a legend, doesn't fall into the previous 4. But there's like the miscellaneous, I guess, like having a brand, getting like 150 plus days, going on a bunch of challenges, where there is like a gray area, but you still have to be like someone who's very talked about amongst the community, someone who has completed a certain amount of days on a challenge, maybe 150, maybe 200, but those would be the 5 main ways to become a legend.
Okay, so according to his 5 ways, and according to what I personally think, I'm really kind of scared to say this because we're not criticizing, but do I think that Frank is a legend? Not yet. Do I think he's going to be a legend? Not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I agree with Gabe's assessment. He's not a legend yet. So anyway, I think that they were trying to make Frank look a little bit, I don't know, moody in this one. There was a couple things that made him seem a little moody, like him having a little attitude about the cage. What else did you, about him carrying so much stuff? I mean, it was just a couple little not so bright moments, I thought, in this one and the last one.
I mainly remember the part where he's like, I don't want to go in that cage. And he and Alexa were like, we don't want to go in the cage. And he was just like, I don't want to go in the cage. So maybe the heat exhaustion has kind of gotten to him a little bit. And so he was a little bit snippy in those moments. But once he got some water and some rest, he was better. But yeah, I think that heat exhaustion really did wear him out a lot more than maybe the edit was letting on.
Yeah, so they get their bonus set up, and then we have the merge. And I knew the merge was happening from day one. So we have the merge. They're so happy, or at least this looked like true joy. I think there was still a little bit of acting going on because I feel like they knew that they were out there. Like they had to be surprised on who it was, but I think they were somewhat surprised. But the joy was real.
Yeah, I think this is the most emotion we've seen from Steven in all 7 episodes. He was like, "Why? Thank goodness you're here. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I've been with my bro." You know, Frank and Alexa are just like, alrighty then. But yeah.
There was a lot of emotion there, and Waz picked him up. I love that bear hug. I was so jealous. Waz, feel free to pick me up like that when you meet me.
I'm just imagining just every time anybody meets Waz, they're like, catch me, and he has to like catch him in the, I don't know what it's called, but basically when he's holding him like this, and he's just like, all right, yes, you've got the hold, okay, I'm not a hugger, okay, whatever.
He was so happy to bear hug. When you see me, I want to bear hug like the way you did Steven. I'm just saying. Okay, so they get the merge, and they're talking about, and they're kind of making fun of Joe and his wheelchair pushing up. Teal talks about the cover, so at least I'm not alone. She made a mention of the cover, and then they mentioned we just got this ready for 3 people. Now there's 6.
Yeah, and I wanted to also point out when everyone meet up, it was kind of like a 2x2x2 situation. She was like, my bro. And Waz showed some emotion when Waz is like, oh, where'd you come from? And Steven was like, the Thunderbowman. Was like, I was there last night. And it's just like, it's nice to see these two having emotions. Teal and Alexa are like, it's really nice to have a really strong female left in this challenge. And then Frank and Joe were kind of talking about the wheelchair. And Frank is like, hey, I think that's really cool that he has all this stuff to play with. And he's like, he came out there looking like a hobo with all this stuff in his wheelchair. And
it was hilarious.
And also with the cage, Steven's just like, you know, Steven's one of those individuals that it's just like, can we like roll it back a little bit? Because he's like, yeah, a lion can, you know, put its arm right through the cage and like pull us and pull an arm out with it too. And I'm just like, Steven, you don't have to be like, we're gonna get taken out of this cage by a lion. But then that night, everyone's sleeping like against the cage walls.
And when they asked about the fire, I thought it was so dumb. When they're asking, where should we move the fire? It's obvious that y'all need to be more towards the middle, not putting your heads near the edges if it's so if it's so dangerous. It was all of that. You make great points. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Maybe what they could have done is, since like I think one or two of the sides did have some sharp branches, they could have put the fire on the sides with the more empty walls and kind of gone against the wall with the more protected sides. But then if you put a fire in front near the doorway of the cage, you might accidentally step on it and burn your foot. Yeah.
And the thing is, I think you could have tended to the fire with it being on the outside of the cage, because with the right poking sticks and everything, I think you could have probably managed that. I didn't like the way they were sleeping around the edges. I think they could have made it way more comfortable for them. There was no cuddling. I guess 70 is too. I think it was around 75 degrees. I guess that's too hot for cuddling. I don't know. I would have liked to cuddle.
But
Y'all could have been a lot closer together. Look at Frozen, how close they were in some of those rooms in Frozen. Let's move on to something more interesting. We have the sixth merge. It's starting to get kind of go like it's no more about the Joe show. It's, Steven and Waz's bromance, and it's starting to kind of get to a plateau and come to an end. And we introduced back in Zaddy and Stee. Anything memorable from that?
there's not really much I remember from the merge because that was kind of near the end of the episode, but there was a little bit of the Joe show. This might be the swan song of the Joe show, but it's when he goes out hunting and he goes out exploring and he goes to the water source with all the hippos. I talked about this last time because when Steven, Alexa, and Frank were near the hippo were near Hippo Lake, they like get right, on the beach area and they're just like, wow, there are hippos there. And I'm like, get away from the water. And then when Joe gets to the water source, he's just like, I'm going to walk along the bank of Hippo Lake. And I'm like, get away from the edge of the water because those hippos are no joke. But luckily he like climbed a hill and he did some hunting, but he missed and stuff. And so I wonder if that's kind of building on him being like, I want to provide for my team. I want to have success and stuff. But I wonder if that storyline's going to come to fruition or if he'll do something else to stand out as like a close to the Joe show. Yeah,
There's going to be a definite close to the Joe show. There has to be. So, but yeah, I've kind of forgot about him and his hunting expedition. And then we have, what else is there besides Wes and Steve joining the group?
there was
Anything
also
else?
the moment, I know Teal also, when she saw the bone and she's like, I'm going to check to see if there's a catfish nest, and she tries to do some noodling there.
Yeah.
And I also
She got one.
Yes, she stood on there and watched kind of the movement of the bubbles, took a few shots, and luckily was able to get one. And I also wanted to point out both Steven and Waz were seen sitting in the wheelchair, so it was a good thing that Joe brought that so that they could sit on that. And it did have uses as much as people are annoyed. But,
Yes.
and no, I don't think Joe's a hoarder, but he was smart about the wheelchair. At least Steven and Waz probably think so. But yes, Teal also got a cat.
Smart. We're coming to a close. They're all going to be together. Some of us are going to sleep outside of the boma. I like that idea. I guess they know it's not going to rain anymore because they're out exposed. They're coming close to the end, but that rain, one night of rain can knock you out of the show. Can it not?
It can, but I think at least Stephen Lee Hall Jr. is just like, I can make it through the storm. It's fine. And so that, I'm sure that's where a lot of their mentalities are at. But that just reminds you of Andrew Forrestel's redemption challenge. And he's like, we need to have cover from the rain because I tapped on my challenge because of it. And then it rained, but it wasn't too cold. So it was just like, maybe they're like, we want to focus on other things. But I know there was some discourse online because people were wondering why they didn't make the new boma or on the side where the door was from it. And my first thought was maybe if they had like a fire like in the middle of that, they didn't want people to be like stepping over the coals and stuff because someone could hurt themselves. But that's just my assumption. But people were being very critical about it online, and they're like, they're fools, Throws fans. They're fools. How could they not do this? I'm well fed and I'm sitting from home and I can do it 20 times better than these people. They're all fools. How dare they be in a calorical deficit and maybe not thinking straight, but also maybe trying some of these ideas and it not being shown and the ideas not working and all that craziness. But
I understand what you're saying. I think I do agree with them in a sense. I think they could have built out, and just like on a lot of different bomas, and this is why I probably ended up on the show, because we're armchair survivalists and I'm up here criticizing. But I do think they could have built out the boma near the entrance and put the fire to the side, way over there, and have it exit over there. I do think that way they could have run inside the boma if something did happen. I mean, inside the cage. So it does make a lot more sense, does it not?
I don't know, maybe something to ask.
You don't want to criticize. I think you just don't want to criticize.
Because one of my fears of doing this is saying something and someone writing a post on Facebook or Instagram being like, there are people who are haters, but I was trying my best out there, and what you didn't know is this happened while I was out there. And then I'm like, oh, I feel like an a-hole. And
well,
you've been on the show and you know what it's
so
like out there. Yes, but not in me. But you've been on the show, so you understand kind of the process and where people can like make changes and stuff. And I haven't been on the show, and I don't want to assume too much.
I'm being honest. I don't think it was a wise decision. It has nothing to do with the fact that I've been on the show before or not been on the show before. I'm out of, how many people are in that boma now? 8? I think out of 8 people, one person could have or must have said, we should probably put it on this side because of this reason, and this reason. And they might have had a whole discussion about it, and there might be a very smart reason why it was on the other side. But I don't know how heavy that cage is. But if lions were coming, or you got scared and you could hear something, there's no bottom to it. So I don't know if they could tilt it over and let the other people in, and that was a plan. I don't know. I mean, all of this went through my mind. But for me, I would have been like, I want to sleep in the cage. Y'all can sleep out there. If that's where y'all want to be, that's where y'all want to be. But I think it's better to be in the cage. Let's ask. Who should we ask? I'm going to write it down.
Okay. I don't think Wes and Stephen Kelly were there at the time that the extra part of the boma was built onto it. So it has to be one of the other 6 maybe Joe. People think like, oh, you've interacted with so many survivalists and you have photos with them. And I'm like, you are the only one I've really spoken to more than like 5 sentences in the last like 5 months. So I don't have as much interaction. I don't want to be like out of nowhere like, hey, tell me everything.
And I want to go ahead and take a moment to say to all the survivalists on Apocalypse, you have done nothing but given me great joy. Well, maybe you frustrated me. Maybe you made me yell at the TV. But for me, that's joy. I want to thank you so much for bringing joy into my life for the past 7 weeks. I cannot wait till next week. We give a lot of passion and time into this because we love you so much. And while we may criticize and while we may think we know best, we know that you're the ones out there doing all the hard work, and we appreciate you. Gabe, please give us some wise words of wisdom.
So remember, don't send hate to any of the survivalists. Support your favorites, please and thank you. Especially Joe. Stop being so mean to him.
Yeah, I don't even care about people being mean to Joe anymore because Joe is great. We know it. Y'all are, there's no need. So with that, we will look forward to next week. And thank you, Sarah Wiley, but thank you for this person who made the post and brought it to our attention. Good job. And we're out. Peace. We love you. I'm gonna miss Joe. I'm gonna miss Teal. I'm gonna miss Joe and Teal the most. It just came over me. Do you have a game to play today?
Yes, and I also have the synopsis for next week's episode.
Okay, give us the synopsis for next week.
Ooh. Not really butted head with their partner, but had not so great of a time with their partner or partners, and that kind of led them to tapping out from the challenge. And those 3 survivalists are Shane, who was on episode 1 and on XL1. We have Danny J, who is also on XL1, and we have Molly from Opposites Don't Attract. And XL1, Shane had to deal with Alana and Danny B. Danny J had to deal with Alana, Danny B, Laura, Eva, Chris, and Luke kind of being like, we don't understand you. Stop it. And then Molly had Nathan as a partner, and he was not nice. So who of those 3 do you want to see return? Okay.
I am a naked and afraid expert. So what I'm about to say means a lot. Okay. I don't know who Molly is.
From Opposites Don't Attract, when the guy was like, we're going to cut down all this bamboo and make a platform. And she's like, what about a roof? And he's like, no. And then there's that whole section in the morning when when he's like, "You need to thank me for all I've done. I do so much. You're
Molly,
so dumb."
the one who goes like this. Like in the whole episode she's blowing.
I don't
He,
remember
he
her.
climbs a coconut tree.
Yes, and he scrapes himself on the way down. That Molly.
That's Molly. Okay, I had no idea who you were talking about. I am so sorry for not knowing your name, Molly. I'm not even going to talk about Shane or Danny J. What happened to you, Molly? She got bullied. I want you back. I have always wondered what happened to you. I love her. Thank you for reminding me of her, Gabe. I want her back. Where is she?
Unfortunately for her coming back to the show, but fortunately for her, I think she had a baby not too long ago, so she has to, raise her child. At least I think. That was either her or someone else, but I think she had a baby not too long ago, and so she's raising the baby. So she may not come back anytime soon, but I could be wrong. But I would like to see her and Danny J.
Well, let's reach out to her. Listen, Molly, I have my screen kind of wonky. I'm so glad we did this. I was not going to do the whole let's play a game thing today. And Molly's freaking great. I'm not even going to give Gabe a chance to even knock me on this. Nobody else comes back. I don't care about the controversy of Shane. I don't care about Danny. The person who deserves to come back, if they want to, is Molly. I wonder what happened to Nathan. I don't want to know what happened to Nathan. Nathan's the only person that I really don't like to talk about because I don't have a lot of nice things to say about him. That was a crazy episode, and so we're out.
Bye.
I had no idea who you were talking about. That was so real. I was like, I'm going to keep this real because usually I'll say, who's Molly? And then I'd cut it out. I love her. I love her. I thought about her during my episode. I actually talked about her during my episode.
They should have included that, but I guess they didn't want Nathan to get more hate, but I don't think Nathan's on social media.
I don't think so either, but I might cut this back in. Molly, I talked about you on my episode. Oh my gosh, I love you. All right, I got to get out of here.